Hi there, welcome. We are live in the Raising Our Resilience Facebook group, and I'm here to answer questions that members have been posing as they've been joining into our group. And if you don't hear your question answered here, just know that we have a lot of resources in the group that you can go through, as well as some really exciting events coming up. Our Navigating Meltdowns workshop was so popular. We had over 100 people register, so much that we decided to go ahead and offer it again in June. So I'll be sharing a way that you can register for that. And I'm hearing from parents that it's time to bring back our 6 training series event that is also going to be in mid-June, where I walk you through 6 strategies to keep your cool, keep your calm, so you can actually use tools and strategies that you know are useful because you've got your wits about you still. Your brain will be integrated, firing in a way that allows you to access good ideas and good resources and be more compassionate, more calm, more confident, and more clear about what to do when you or the kids are upset. So a lot of good things coming up in June. For today, we have our Ask Me Anything segment, and I know I shared with you in the post above this video what the questions are that we're going to be addressing today, but I'll also be sharing them out. Now, there are, several big-hearted, several big-hearted folks who are here to, get more ideas of what to do in those toughest moments. And that's how you've landed here in the Raising Resilience parent group. And so I just want to welcome you. And if everybody can, welcome the folks who are new here. We often have welcome posts, and just say hello and let them know that they're not alone. Because, it really does take a village to raise resilient kids. And I say it takes a village of resilient parents to raise resilient children. And part of what we do is we really, take care of ourselves as we take care of our kids, and we take care of each other. So say hello to someone in the group, say hello on the welcome post. So invite friends in. This is a place that's a very safe and supportive space. It's a no shame zone where we get to be messy and try new things and discover what our kids really need from us. I believe there's no one way to parent kids. I'll say it again, there's no one way to parent kids. And anyone who tells you that there is might be a little bit overconfident about their method. Because what I know is that each child needs something a little different from each caregiver. And those of you who have more than one child or have been around, kids with different personalities, different temperaments, different needs, know this to be true. And so what I'm here to help you do is, consider some ideas that could be supportive that you might try on. And if it feels like it's authentic and it fits what your child needs, then keep going with it. If for some reason it doesn't, that's fine too. So here are my suggestions for this month. I have Charlotte here asking, how do I better manage my daughter having screaming meltdowns every morning? And I picked this one first, Charlotte, because I know how important it is to start the day off right. Also, that we have been talking about emotional resilience, and we've been talking about what do you do when your kids, really like lose their cool, right? So, a couple things that you need to know. First of all, and this is like the short version of the longer webinar that's coming in June, which I'll throw the link in to make sure that you guys can, everyone can register to that in a moment here. But what I want you to do is realize a couple of things. First of all, meltdowns are absolutely normal. They are a pre-programmed response to call attention to your needs. So that's why we still have meltdowns as adults oftentimes, right? And when I say meltdown, it's just any time that you're no longer in control of your emotional response and you start to act in ways that are really different from when you're calm. You might do and say things that you really don't feel like you have a choice about. They just sort of happen. So that could be a meltdown, a tantrum. It could be like a really escalated power struggle where you start to say things that you really don't mean, or have definitely not thought about yet. And the kids will do that too. They'll even get physical, right? So one thing you can do, first of all, is just take a moment, take a breath in the moment, say, okay, this is a normal thing. like there's nothing wrong with my child. I haven't necessarily done something very wrong here, but this is a form of communication. So my child is flooded, my child is overloaded, and they're giving me their response and calling my attention to something they need or something they want. It's a form of communication. So that's the first one, Charlotte, and anybody else who has regular meltdowns happening. The second one is to understand that when these meltdowns occur, the most important thing we can do is help them to sort of put that lid back on. Now, for the full training on that, make sure you come to the Meltdowns webinar. But the idea here is that, they didn't choose to get upset. Usually when the meltdowns are happening, it's as a result of something truly upsetting. And so we need to figure out what it is that has set them off and help soothe them. And there's a lot of ways to do that. My favorite ones are somatic. They're very physical. So it's around, having taking breaths with them, with some co-regulation, having them move their attention by actually physically moving to another place and kind of changing up the scene. And another one that's really popular is giving her something she can do with that screaming. So she can go into the other room and she can scream into a pillow. She can do let her know wow, you're upset. And I can tell because your voice is so loud. You must really need to get that out. Let's go step outside and scream at the tree. And just kind of shrug about the neighbors. They'll have to deal with it, But redirection to get that emotion out is always welcome. It's something that's sometimes overlooked. And because what we tend to do, and here, Charlotte, is one thing I want you to avoid, is we try to stop the meltdown, just stop it. And I think part of what's going on there is that, we are not recognizing that there's a communication happening there. Secondly, we might mistaken that, kids can actually just put their lid back on. And occasionally they can, but it's often really, it tends to move things in a more escalated direction, to argue with the feeling, to try to just stop them from having that feeling. Instead, I would embrace that the feeling is here. Hello, feeling, you've arrived. The brain is fired this way. And we're going to try our best to work with it and help you get your lid back on. And that's our top priority. The other thing to avoid is trying to give too many words when kids are upset. Say less, do more, okay? So, and that's because when their lid is off, kids are not able to process their language as well. So if you are to use words, it is to validate the emotion, help them choose a way to calm down, and really do that emotion coaching so that they can put that lid back on. Now, if I've said a bunch of things that you're like, I don't know what you mean by lids, Vanessa, what do you mean meltdowns are normal? I don't get it, excuse me. Then you're going to want to, maybe consider jumping on my calendar by applying for a strategy session so we can actually talk this through and you can get some one-on-one support. And the way you would do that is you would take this quiz and apply for a session. Okay, so I just threw it into the chat for those of you who are interested in getting a little more information about that. The other thing you can do is come to one of my workshops, and I'll share a link for that in a moment. So we're going to move on to one more, but before we do, if you're here listening, let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from. So like for me, it would be Vanessa. I like to put my pronouns in there too. She, her. I happen to be right now in the Kona area of Hawaii, but I'm usually in El Cerrito, California. And then I would also put, the ages of my kids. I have a 22 and a 24-year-old stepkids who are fully grown. And then I also have a 7-year-old in my household as well. So go ahead and put that in. to the comments or chat so I can support you more specifically. Also, this is a great time to go ahead and drop your own question in the chat. So let me know who's here. Say hello, share a little bit about yourself so other people can get to know you too. And let me know if you have a question, or especially if you hear something that you're like, yeah, but what about this, Vanessa? This is your chance to get some one-on-one attention here. All right. And let's go to Khwan's question. So Khwan is wanting to know more of a motivation question. And I love motivation questions because I've done so much research on motivation just by being a classroom teacher in a Montessori classroom for 15 years, but also as a point of personal interest. I focused on motivation in my master's research as well, like what could motivate kids to be more engaged with activities, what gets in their way, and what can we do about it? And so I've developed a whole body of work around how to boost motivation. So Khwan is asking, how do I motivate my child to practice music? And of course, I get excited, I'm like, ooh, just like the Meltdowns piece, like, perfect, I can help you with this. So Khwan, if you were with me on the session right now, I would be asking you, what is it that you've tried so far? And what do you find your child naturally motivated to do? And that would be a good starting place. But since we don't have, we're not in that dialogue at this moment, why don't I'll go ahead and run through my top motivation strategies. So the first one is to kind of go with that sort of intrinsic internal motivation and do your best to really make the activity more interesting. Now, unfortunately, with a lot of music programs, it's a lot of repetition, and kids often find that incredibly monotonous and will even complain of it being boring. Or so if that's what's happening, you might want to think about, how could we make this more interesting by maybe turning it into a game? Like, how many times can you practice this song in 10 minutes? Go, or you could have it be where you have little mini concerts, right? So like they get to share with you at the end of their practice, like what the song they feel like they've improved the most, or like the section of a song that they've improved the most. That could make it more interesting. Another way to make it interesting could be to, kind of look at warm up with songs that they already are, like, it's like a piece of cake for them, even if it's just a scale, and just have them like enjoy what they do well first, and then roll into the next challenging piece. I'll give you one more. So oftentimes with technical skills like music or math or reading, we tend to, all of us, even teachers who have almost 20 years of experience will do this, we'll kind of overshoot the goal. And so maybe, for example, we have this idea that 30 minutes of practice is what it takes, but we're not able to get our kids to sit down for that. And so we might just start with 5 minutes and scaffold. So we say, we're going to start with 5 minutes this week. Next week, we're going to go to 10. Next time, we're going to go to 15, and we'll build up to 30. That's one way to scaffold. Scaffolding is like where you can like stair step them and scaffold them up to the level that you really would like them to be performing at. Another way to scaffold could be to really look at like the level of challenge of the pieces and just make sure that it really is within their skill ability. And if it is, but they're just like, they're complaining of it being too long of a piece or too complicated of a piece, help them break it into, phrases, right? So you could do the first phrase would be like, let's say it's a verse and chorus, have them do a verse and just practice the verse over and over until they got it down, and call that a win, So you might even combine these two strategies, right? You might like make it into a bit of a game, like, can you get this verse down in 10 minutes, and start there. And also the other thing that parents tend to do is and this is the 3 out of the 5 categories: interest, competence. Now I'm going to get into relatedness. Relatedness around relationships is that sometimes we send kids to practice their music or to do their homework as a solo activity, before they feel really ready to just sit and be by themselves. They miss us. They want reassurance that they're still connected with us. They want our attention. They want us to speak their love language. They want maybe to have you there with them to get started. They might even need you there the whole time. It's just sort of what happens with kids, who especially young kids. They are social creatures. They really like to be with others, which is why sometimes group rehearsals or group practice sessions go better. I have several music teachers in my life, and they said, one of the things that's really cool about these Zoom sessions is that the kids show up more. They show up in a different way. They participate in a different way because they see other kids doing it too. So something to consider, like you might need to give them some good company. So Khwan and anyone else out there who's trying to boost motivation for a technical skill, consider breaking it down into smaller parts and checking the level, making sure it's a level they're actually can be successful at, maybe even warm them up with something that they're already good at. Try to make it more interesting by like adding a little game or challenge, use a timer, something that makes it feel a little bit more like it's a fun activity, not just this thing they're repeating over and over. And then the third would be keep them good company, or make sure you take time to connect with them and transition them in, previewing the expectations before you start. So Khwan, you just got a taste, and those of you listening, of what it's like to be coached through a question like that in a very short form. When I meet with my clients, we usually meet for about 50 minutes and we get much deeper into it. But there you go, Khwan, there's your nugget. Here's your several nuggets to play with. Let me know if something stood out to you. And those of you who are listening, if you haven't yet introduced yourself, please do. Let me know where you're tuning in from, ages of your kids, and if you have any questions for the Ask Me Anything. And then Khwan and Charlotte, if you listen to this, put into the comments something that stood out to you that you want to try next, okay? Let me know. I'd love to hear. All right, so our next question, moving on, is from Claire Sunspiral. So Claire asks, how can I effectively deal with defiance and aggression from my 6-year-old? This is such an important one because oftentimes when kids are exhibiting behaviors that feel defiant and or just are, that are defiant or aggressive, it can really trigger adults. I know that a lot of us have complicated relationships with both authority and anger, like whether or not it's okay to express anger, who gets to express anger, what are the okay ways to do it, how do we turn anger into something useful and constructive, because we don't want to squash it. What are some empowering ways that kids can express themselves without being aggressive necessarily or doing harm? Really good topic. So I've spent quite a bit of time on this as well because from my own experience in the classroom, but also, growing up in a household where anger was really tricky, it can be easy to feel defeated or to even fight back when kids are expressing anger or aggression. So if this is hard for you, I feel you. Let me know in the chat, in the comments. Hi, Titania. Good to have you here on Zoom. Let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, the ages of your kids, and if you have any of your own questions, go ahead and pop them in. But okay, so into this anger and aggression piece. First of all, we need to understand why anger is useful. So the reason why anger is useful is because it helps us to share that there's something that feels untrue about the situation. Now, for example, you're at, as an adult, you're in a work environment and someone says, yeah, there's no way you'll ever get that promotion. And that would flare anger potentially, yeah, or sadness or disappointment or shock. But let's say anger, because there's sort of this like, this untruth, right? This lie that's like being told, the story that doesn't actually fit. And so we get angry, and it's justified. It's like justified anger. And what it can often do is it can help us get very clear about the truth, and it can get us into action for advocating for the truth, right? So it's like, you might say something like, wow, that's really a really unhelpful perspective. what I know to be true is that, women of color, for example, I identify as women of color can actually be upwardly mobile, and I believe that there's potential for me here. So that's what I believe to be true, and you can constructively express that perhaps. Now with kids, it gets tricky because with their limited life experience, they're going to get angry about things that they perceive to be untrue, but actually really just are the way things are. And it's partly because if you think about a child, when they come into the world, it's just like their brain is literally telling them, be open to all possibility and get your needs met, basically, right? So that's why a child can be born in one place and learn a completely different alphabet and completely different cultural norms than another. It's because they're so open to the possibility. So when we say, no, you can't have a cookie before dinner, or you can't watch another episode of your show, or it's time to go to bed, even though all the adults are still up, they don't like it. They get mad, right? Because there's something that they haven't yet integrated about the way the world works. And so they feel often justified in their anger. You're the meanest mom ever, I want it now, give it to me, or I'll, and then they start kicking you or something. And I just wanted to start in a place of compassion, of like, that anger itself is not the problem. Aggression itself is not necessarily the problem. If somebody tries to grab your backpack off your back, not a bad reaction to be a little bit aggressive and try to pull it back, right? So we have these instincts. How can we help kids understand that the thing that they're upset about is not an untruth, it's just how things are, right? And that takes time, and it takes being able to articulate expectations really clearly, which is, it's just not always easy. So what I would start with, Claire Sun Spiral, love your name, by the way. What I would start with is making sure that you're being crystal clear about your expectations, so that they can have time, your children can have time with their lids on, your 6-year-old in particular, where they have a calm, integrated brain to grapple with the truth of what you share with them. Honey, in this household, we don't watch more than an hour of TV shows or YouTube or anything like that. We always give our brains and eyes a rest after 20 minutes or after an hour. And here's what's going to happen. You lay it out, right? Here's what's going to happen when it's time for, there's 5 minutes left, I'll give you a heads up. And so you're previewing, which is a strategy I share with my clients all the time. And we discover how many ways you can preview. It's incredible. Here's what's going to happen 5 minutes before it's time to turn it off. We'll do our little hand signal of 5 minutes, right? And then, and can you show me what that's going to look like? And you can practice it with them. And they can say, okay, and then when there's 2 minutes left, I'm going to show you the 2-minute sign and you're going to flash it back, right? Okay, let's practice that. All right. And then what happens when the 2 minutes are up, right? Because what's been happening is I will say, okay, it's time to turn it off. And you get so mad that you start yelling at me and you refuse to, you throw a big fit. Now, since this is the way it is, what are some other options we have, And then you can say like, hey, if you start going down that road, I will turn off the device myself and put it away for the rest of the day. And you won't have any more screen time for the rest of the day. And that's just what it's going to be. Yeah, because in our family, we also don't treat each other like that for the rules we have. These are the rules we have. Now, if you're disappointed and upset, you can go into your room and I can help you take some breaths or do some wall push-ups. I understand that it's frustrating that you don't have full control over when you watch and how long. Do you see, I just empathized, right? However, it's really not okay for you to be aggressive towards my body or to scream at me. So if any of those things happen, you're going to need to immediately go in the other room and find a way to calm down. So you can preview all of this. And it's something that you just like, we always think, oh, good, that's behind us. Like, let's, we got through that one, and then we just leave it alone. And then it happens again. And we're like, oh no, we're back here again. So here's a way to be proactive. Okay. I built in about 10 strategies in there, by the way, in my example. So Claire, I'm wondering what I said that stood out to you. Is it like the previewing tool? Is it the taking a break from the scene and finding a coping strategy tool? Is it the practicing a hand signal? Is it even having a hand signal, right? So lots of options there. Okay, Claire, let me know what you liked about that. And anybody else who's listening, share with me something that stood out to you. Put it in the comments or the chat. And it's a little quiet today, so let's start hearing your voices. Also, if you have any questions yourself, let me know. Yeah, share what they are. And I'm saving a little time for folks who show up live, okay? All right, so this next one is from Michelle. And let's see if Michelle Meyer. So Michelle, you want to know, how do you manage your 2-year-old living in 2 different households? Well, good news, bad news. So good news, you're not the only family who's needed to transition a toddler from households. And there are, some pretty good things about 2-year-olds that are working in your favor. One of the things is that 2-year-olds are really focused on what's in front of them, right? And so when you have a 2-year-old in your world that's transitioning a lot, one of the things you're going to want to do is help them with those transitions the most, and with their sort of biological routine, right? So when is nap time? When are meal times? When is sleeping time? And try to coordinate with the other household as much as possible so that things run similarly in terms of timing. Okay, I would start there. Excuse me. I have right now 7 or 8 families that I'm working with out of the 25 in my Family Foundations Immersion, and my 6 private clients who have 2 different households. And another thing you want to keep a close eye on are transitions. So transitions between households, transitions throughout the day for any toddler, by the way, any parent out there with a toddler who's listening, they're so sensitive to transitions. And so what you might do is do things like have a little mini ritual for leaving routine, when it's time for them to transition to the new, to one household from the other. You might want to have a little leaving routine where, I don't know, maybe you both hug their bear together. You give them a particular kind of touch, or a little kiss or something, and you say something really clear about when they're going to see you next, and that you love them, and let them know. So that's a really good way to do it. Some kind of mini routine that's yours, that is unique and it stands out, and so they know that it's this, that this is part of it. One thing that can be really soothing is to actually sing a song on the way over to the transition. And oftentimes it can be helpful if both parents are there for the car transition into the home, or from car to car, however you're doing your transitions. So if there are 2 things you were to get really coordinated about with Amber, Michelle, with your co-parent, it's the transition between the 2 households and coming up with a little mini routine so it's pretty consistent and reliable, and they can see it's a similar time of day, similar things happen. And the other thing would be to coordinate between households the basic routine of the day, so that they're not having a radically different meal time, nap time, and bedtime, and wake time at the 2 households. That can be really helpful to have that consistency, because little ones are so sensitive to that. Now, Michelle, if there's more that I didn't cover, there's a different aspect to this that you want help with, just throw it into the comments of this so that I can support you. Okay. I'm trying to think. There's one more probably I could give you, because even my own stepkids would go to 2 households. I had 2 households growing up. It would be really helpful to have a bag of stuff that's just the stuff that they get to have at both houses, right? They get to bring it with them no matter what, their comfort object for sleeping, maybe even a sippy cup or something like that, that's just, it's theirs, and it always, they always have it, whether they're in one household or another. Think of daily items that they tend to love and cherish and need. Those can be really helpful too, just as comfort objects. The other thing that you and I could talk about, Michelle, and if this is interesting to you, you know, consider applying for a session. Just want to make sure too that I've got this session for Titania. Titania, if you wanted to also apply, I can put it here for you. If you wanted to talk about how to get those conversations rolling, if that's something that, you know, you're not sure about, you know, if it would be helpful to have, you know, a conversation with your co-parent, we could set something like that up, and I could help you with that. Okay. You two could apply for the session together, and then I could walk you through some ideas. Okay. Yeah, that's what the session's for. It's there to help you. And also, if you take the quiz, we might be able to identify what areas might need the most attention. That's the beauty of this quiz, friends. It takes you through my body of work called The 7 Pillars of Raising a Resilient Child, which I'll just take a moment to share with you here for a second so you can have a look at it. So you won't be able to read every little detail here, but I wanted you to have a chance to just see these 7 pillars of emotional mastery, motivation mastery, being able to set limits clearly. Claire, this is something that is standing out in your comment you just dropped about being able to get them clear and consistent, and, you know, offering choices and following through in a way that doesn't lead to like really long conversations. So Claire, I would encourage you to go ahead and take the quiz, and we can see what's what with getting you some one-on-one support with a free session. Okay. And I'll speak to that topic a little bit more. We also have, you know, smoothly running routines, and that's on what I was just sharing. You know, we're kind of focusing on this one here for Michelle, particularly with the 2 households. It can be really helpful to have some consistency that you know, just helps the child stay in their rhythms. And there are ways to establish that I can share with you as well if you wanted to apply for a session. Okay, Michelle. And then there's also conflict resolution and repair, which maybe we'll get into in a moment here, Claire, because it sounds like things escalate. And gosh, you know, how human of all of you. It's like so hard. Everybody wants to be in charge, and you know, oftentimes the kids have a lot more, are willing to take things a lot further than we are. So yeah, we'll get into that a bit. And then being able to set mutual goals as a family and create a sense of teamwork is also really key, and can come from, you know, the work that you do to set up healthy boundaries, to create really good, robust, smoothly running routines, to share emotional resilience tools and motivation tools. Like teamwork can be built, as well as good, really great relationships from that. But there are also some tools and strategies that are specific to like getting clear about what are our shared values and being able to articulate them, or what is our goal this month in terms of behavior? Like, what is our next step for my 6-year-old who tends to kick and hit? Maybe it's like the next step is getting him to just yell. And then we can go from yelling to speaking with a more respectful tone, or walking away if you feel like yelling. And then we can move to having these family meetings where we can talk it through ahead of time and be really proactive. So there's a progression here. But I wanted you to share like what my, you know, what we're building here together. Okay. All right. So back to Claire's question. And then I have another one that was shared in the group as well. Claire says, it's hardest when the hitting starts because my trauma is triggered. Okay. Yes. Yes, Claire. Oh, that's so clear. I'm glad you realized that, you know, yeah, that you have that trigger, because of course it does. I mean, of course a lot of us do. I mean, hitting is a very upsetting thing to receive, but especially if we have history with it, it can be even harder to getting through the moment where you can stay in that calm space. Claire, I have a 6-day training coming up in June, and I want everyone to know about this. The 6-day training is all about building in resilience tools so that in the moment when you're triggered or there's a lot of big emotion flowing, you can regain that calm. So I know you probably have tools, Claire, for that, but maybe it's time for a refresher and to hear a few new ideas. There's also work I do to help parents tame their triggers, so it's just less upsetting. And that's another piece we could chat about. But in terms of you know, strong negotiators and lots of back and forth, yeah, engaging in that less, Claire, I'm so glad you're touching on that. This is something that, you know, I tell parents a lot of times when this comes up is kids will push back if you give them something to push back on. So if he's negotiating, you know, that's almost like a tug of war rope, and he's waving the end at you, and you pick it up and you grab it, and you're in this push, you know, this pull, this push kind of situation. If a limit is a limit, there's really not much to negotiate. And so one thing that can help you shift from getting put on the spot with really strong emotions coming at you is to say, until things are calm, hun, I'm not willing to discuss this with you. And just being really insistent that that's the real limit is like, we got to calm down. We got to calm down. You know, I need to calm down. You need to calm down, or we're not continuing this conversation. But I just want 5 more minutes. No, until we've both taken a 5-minute break and put our lids back on, we're not going there. Yeah, but you should leave, not me. And I'm like, okay, fine. You know, like just go with some of it. Like, don't fight with it. You know, if there's something that's like a battle you can let go of for now. And I would say it's not about winning. It's about staying clear, staying clear. Right. And since he's quick to hit, you know, you're right. Mostly it's about calming yourself, which is still tough to do. I get it, Claire. When kids are quick to go really past into that red zone, right? Into that, like, what I lovingly call sort of almost beast mode, or just like this involuntary, like, it comes out, especially at 6, you can imagine it, right? This little bear, like, smacking or whatever. You can act swiftly and just say, hey, that's not okay. You know, are you walking away or am I walking away? Yeah. Or you can say, hey, that's not okay. Are you done? Are you ready to use your words? Okay, you're not? Then let's take that 5, you know? And Claire, last thing I would say, and you're really getting a feel for what it's like to be coached right now, I'm sure. Last thing I'd say is let him know that you want to make a plan for when things escalate. You know, just come to him with that intention. And you and I can talk through some pregame on how to have that conversation with him. But kids are more ready to make a plan for when they get upset than we think. And if you find him like resisting that conversation, there's ways to get it started. I've helped several clients with that, with kids who shut down around the conversation. I would love to help you with that. Okay, Claire? So yeah, take the quiz, grab the session. Let's do this. And I hope that was helpful for you as well, the tips from today. All right, so I don't want to miss this last question from Amber. So Amber wants to know, how does she stay patient when her child won't listen to her? So this is really similar to what I was just coaching Claire about. So yeah, you're welcome, Claire. But I want to make sure that I kind of get into one more nuance here. So maybe hang in there, hang with me, Claire, as well. So how do you stay patient? I think, you know, the tug of war rope is really helpful, Amber, right? Like they're waving it at you and you're like, not playing, you know, like not gonna do it. But I think sometimes it's harder when they're just ignoring you to like recognize that that's what's happening, right? Because it feels like they're actually turning away. They're not waving the rope, they're like hiding it, you know, like, I'm not gonna listen to you, I'm gonna just do my own thing. Amber, I'd love to hear what behavior is actually happening. Are they ignoring? Are they like actively refusing? Are they talking back? Are they calling you names? Like what's happening, right? So, but being able to stay patient is a practice, and it's more like a practice than a destination. In other words, you don't suddenly become a patient person who's always patient. However, you can, it takes about 10 weeks, okay, 10 weeks to 3 months. If you regularly practice calming down strategies in the moment and outside of the moments that are testing your patience the most, your default will change. I see this all the time with my clients. So folks come to me all the time, Amber, with questions like that yours and Claire, right? Like how do I possibly stay calm when I'm triggered, or when they're testing me, or when, they won't listen. And what I see is that with like by month 2 or 3, which is that 60 to 90 days into the practice, and into just like the commitment of working with a coach and being in a parent program, and, you know, committing over and over to, I am going to change this. I'm going to make a permanent change. Sharing tools and strategies with the kids, creating a calm down space that has all these props in there that really prompts everybody that this is a good thing to do to get calm before you continue. You will get better at it. You will become more patient. Your capacity will grow. Because I have my, you know, clients are telling me month 2, month 3, Vanessa, I'm not yelling anymore, or I can't believe it, I only yelled once this week. Vanessa, like my kid tried to hit me yesterday, and I was like, whatever, kid, like you need to go calm yourself down, and I can help you, but you don't, you know, this isn't okay. And they're like, that doesn't sound like me. That sounds like you, Vanessa, but I can do that now, you know. So what I can tell you, Amber, is that if you make the commitment to change, you put practices into play that are really, that you find effective for you and your child, which there are like hundreds. So I could help you figure out which ones are working best for your family. And you have some accountability, like mentorship in like one of my programs or some other form of accountability. You know, some folks will find another way. But at least in my world, I found it really helpful to work with a coach or to come to like a weekly meeting like this, because it keeps it top of mind, and you stay the course so that it's really hard for you to slide backwards, right? Like you make progress, and then you make more progress, then you make more progress. And pretty soon, like a lot of the families I've seen after 6 months of an intensive with me, or a year long, you know, in my immersion program, they literally can't go back. Like they can't default back to how it was before. And this makes sense. This is just the learning cycle. This is like how we develop anything, right? Like you can't go to one yoga class and then be like, now I know yoga, you know, like it just doesn't work like that. But if you go regularly every week, or you watch a video every single week, or maybe even more often, twice a week, next thing you know, your body knows that sunrise salutation, right? Or your body knows how to use the right posture in the warrior pose, or whatever kind of thing that you might be studying. You can think, I'm sure, of another area of life where you have really wrapped your head around the fact that this is a learned skill. Well, guess what? Emotional regulation, also a learned skill. Being able to like use motivation hacks really usefully, like really effectively, also a learned skill. And that's why these 7 pillars are these 7 pillars, not because it's just what kids need. It's like, these are the ones that are learned skills. Like nobody tells us like, here's how you run a routine with a 2-year-old. Like, it's just not something we get. I wish we just got a genetic download. It's like, oh, now I know how. But instead, you know, we have these trainings, and that's why I do what I do. So I'm so glad you're here and we're able to get something out of this. Please, please, please. It's so valuable for everybody, and for me too, and for yourself. Go ahead and put into the comments, if you've listened to this all the way through, what it is that you got out of this training that stood out to you. What's your next thing that you want to try? And then come back on Mondays and keep your own momentum going. This is one way of staying in the practice, is to keep showing up here in the Raising Our Resilience parent group. Another way is to explore private mentorship, you know, to be able to join my year-long academy with a group of usually, you know, between 10 and 30 families that we travel together, or in a private coaching intensive with me. And I have a few spots opening up in the next month or 2. So if that is of any interest to you, go ahead and, you know, grab a spot on my calendar for your free session by taking the quiz. The link is above. Link is in there. Let's see, to Tanya, I don't see any comments from you, but if there's anything you wanted to share with me before you run, that's great. Oh, and I'm seeing that the link is not in the right place. Here you go. There you go. Now you can have the link to the quiz. To Tanya, good to have you here on Zoom. And then I'll drop the quiz one more time into our Raising Our Resilience live space. And, you know, sometimes people tell me like they come to these talks and it just feels better. And that's part of why I do these, right? Because like you're not on your own. You don't have to do this on your own with, you know, without like getting a chance to, you know, talk this through, or get some feedback, or get some suggestions. Like Claire is sharing that she learned to put more attention on her own resilience. Yeah. And if you get clear about boundaries and communicate them clearly and lovingly, that's really helpful as well. Good takeaway, Claire. I love it. And then to be able to not engage in the negotiation, and that support is available. Nice, Claire. Absolutely. Whether you want to join on these Facebook Lives or in the Zoom room is totally up to you. I like the Facebook Lives because we can chat and come back to these comments, once the session is over. But if people prefer Zoom, that's fine too, to answer your question, Claire. All right, lots of love to you all. Have a great rest of your week. Couple of announcements. We will be having another session on Monday. I'm going to be bringing in an author, we're going to be skipping next week, and we'll be back on May 31st. And I'll be bringing in author of a book called Pause. And she's particularly good at getting our minds wrapped around why we need to build in pauses throughout the day to build our resilience, like Claire was mentioning. So that's a special event. And then we do have the Meltdowns webinar coming up, and I promised I would pull up that link. So I'll just take a moment or two here to pull that up so that I can share it with you. And you can pre-register, because the registration is not even really out into the world yet, but I want you to have it, okay? And as I'm pulling that up, I'll again share with you that we have a really great series coming up in June, where we'll be playing games right here in the Facebook group over 6 days to learn our calm down strategies. And there's some great prizes, including, this is exciting, including a free pass to our Motivation Mastery Weekend, which is in July. It's a $500 value. And all you need to do is show up for the sessions and play in the little contests. They're really fun contests, and they're designed to help you really integrate what you learn and be motivated to go practice what you learn and to keep showing up for more of that. So, that's coming up as well. I want to make sure you have that. And I'm just going to grab this link here for you so we can get that to you before we go. So this is for the Meltdowns webinar that's happening on June 7th that I want to make sure you have. And it's funny, it won't show me the page anymore, but I'll find you guys. And when you register for this, you'll also be given weekly emails. Weekly emails that will get you, tips and strategies right into your inbox so that you don't miss out on any of these talks and free trainings. Because I know what it's like, we're busy. We're busy and our lives get really full. And the next thing you know, we don't really have the time or energy to keep track of what's happening. So I like to give parents a reminder every Monday of what's happening. And this is a great way to do it, is to get onto the list for the weekly tips. So here's the link for the Meltdowns webinar that's happening on June 7th. Again, we had over 100 people register and come to this event this last month, so we're offering it again, knowing that many people signed up couldn't make it, and there are plenty of other folks who could benefit from meltdown busting strategies. And I will be announcing more about our 6-day series right here in the group. So go ahead and take the quiz, get that session, mark your calendar, register for the webinar, and we'll see you next time. Our next session is May 31st in 2 weeks. 2 weeks on a Monday at 2 p.m. We'll see you then. All right, Tanya. See you next time. See you next time, Claire, and those of you who are listening who haven't had a chance to say hello yet. Lots of love to you all, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye for now.